I lost my little girl. Since then, it's been a long and winding road. I wonder, what did you think you wanted to be when you were a young Liverpudlian?
I wanted to be a doctor because my mother was a nurse and she wanted me to be a doctor. Like all nurses want their sons to be doctors. But I wasn't smart enough, because you've got to be really smart and committed, and I was more interested in music. And then when I was at school, I thought I might be going to try and be a teacher, because that was the only thing I had the qualifications for. So I was thinking I might be an English teacher, because I got quite a good exam in English. So that was going to be the next thing, but then it was all blown apart. My career hopes were dashed on the shore of the Beatles.
And what were your parents' reactions to you being a rock star, wanting to be one?
Well, unfortunately, my mum was dead by then, so it was my dad who had the reaction. But luckily, he'd been a musician. He'd had a band when he was about 25 called Jim Mack's Jazz Band. And they used to play Chicago, Chicago, from used to play all that stuff, Paul Whiteman, American jazz and stuff. So he didn't mind at all. He was quite into it. He just warned us of the dangers, you know, and be very careful, get a good manager and do this and do that. The big step was whether he'd let us come to Hamburg, because everyone knew about Hamburg's reputation. Even he knew about Hamburg's, and he didn't want to see his little baby son, aged, you know, 18 or something, go off to this terrible, terrible seaport. But of course, we were very keen to go, and the money was good, so we weren't very well off. So the money came in handy.
You have a working background, come from a working family, and very, very much a Liverpudlian. You always seem to be very proud of coming from Liverpool, like most Liverpool people.
Yeah.
Do you think it's very important that you remember, one remembers the background, your parents, grandparents, what you come from?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think in many ways it's all you've got. It's your tradition, you know. If ever I'm faced with a decision, I will often think, what would they have done? What would the people in Liverpool do? I don't think, what would my new friends do? You know, I often refer back to things like that. And when you get a family of your own, you know, rather than read a book about how to bring up a baby, I just remember what the women did. I just think of what they did, because they seem to bring up people very well. My family is, like you say, you know, it was a working class family. There wasn't a lot of money around, but they've all done quite well. They're all very interesting people. I think it was really just because my parents aspired to something. They wanted something great for their kids, for me and my brother, you know. And I think it was the same in the rest of the family. So it's a great spirit, you know, and even though I've been a lot of places in the world, I've never met people with any better spirit than they had.
Is that a part of the things that you wanted to celebrate in doing the oratorium in the Liverpool Cathedral? Is that celebrating the certain solidarity that seems to be in Liverpool?
Yeah, I'm glad you've noticed it, actually, because, you know, Liverpool people notice it, obviously, but it's nice when other people outside Liverpool spot that we're very keen on the city.
I've been there about 4 times, and I always had the feeling of people being very friendly. It has a rumor of a lot of unemployment, violence, misery, but when you go there, everybody's so friendly, and you get to talk to people.
That's right.
It's one of my favorites.
Liverpool gets the worst press in England, because it's true, you know, there are a few who grab the headlines and are, we're going on strike, clean your own bin, you know. And I don't know the ins and outs of that particular problem, but that's what gets the headlines. But when we went up there to do the oratorio, you see, for instance, all the people in the choir. They're really very smart people. They're very intelligent. They're very good-spirited. They're very enthusiastic. Like you said, they're very friendly. Liverpool people, you know, often you imagine they're going to hit you, but it's the opposite's the case. You know, it's like, come in, have a cup of tea. Now sit down, tell me your troubles, son. You know, and there's a lot of that now. Anyone, anywhere over the world likes that. You know, my aunties always, whoever came from anywhere, they'd tell us your troubles, you know, and the guys would always end up opening their hearts to them, you know, saying, well, my girlfriend's left me. So don't worry, have another cup of tea. So, you know, there's a lot of that. Yeah, and that's what I'm celebrating in the oratorio. And to me, it's about ordinary people. It's about simple people. It's about the strength that I see in the world. I see ordinary people as the strength in the world. I don't see the big people as the strength. I see the big people as the downfall. When I talk about big people, I mean politicians.
But do you think we're lacking a lot of Liverpool in the world today, or in Britain?
No, I think it's there. I think it's there. You know, unfortunately, they're not the politicians. The politician, you know, to be a politician, you've got to have a very big drive, a big ego, big ambition, and you've got to want to put up with a lot of trouble and a lot of heartache and a lot of work. I mean, one night, I met Maggie Thatcher in the House of Parliament. I was taken there by some friends. I met her, it was 11:30. She'd just come out of a debate. And I said, well, you're going home now, are you? She said, oh, no, we're just starting. She said, I'll be here till about 3 in the morning. I said, oh, dear me. I said, you've got a worse job than the cleaners. You know, at least they come for 2 hours and go home. So I suspect that's maybe why the ordinary people don't want the job. I know people who used to want to be president of the United States who no longer want the job. It's changed. So, but I think the people are all still there, and I think, you know, if I get a chance, I talk about it. I know a lot of other people who sort of feel this way. And I think if you don't look to the ordinary people for your strength, where are you going to look?
I've been wondering about that when you did the oratorium with Carl Davies, which must have been a great thrill for you. A very new area, even though you touched on the base of music like that before.
Yeah.
But this was a completely new thrill for you. Yeah. Was that because you needed to show something, maybe to leave a stone for the posterity of
I don't know.
Paul McCartney?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose there's a small aspect of that in it, you can't deny, you know, but no, really for me is, I love good work. I love interesting work. You know, I do like, I probably like you probably enjoy coming to work. I mean, you know, if you meet good people and you do something interesting. And it was great because I was commissioned by the orchestra with Carl to do it. So I didn't have to think, will I do it? I just had to accept the offer, you know. And then they said, well, it'll be with the full orchestra, so I didn't have to think, who shall I use? You know, there were a lot of questions that made it easy for me. They said, we want you to use the whole choir, so that made it easy. So really all I had to think of, well, when the choir come in, how do I want them to come in? So, and those are interesting questions for me. I elected to have a big chord. Bah! And all the voices come in at once, whacking great chord. So these were kind of fun decisions for me, so I enjoyed every minute of it.
But I know you don't read or write notes.
No,
and it must have been...
But you don't need to. It's a funny thing. There's actually, some people have been explaining to me that there are other classical, people who've written in the classical field who also couldn't write. There've been quite a few people like that. Well, I've managed, you know, with Yesterday, Long and Winding Road, Eleanor Rigby, I've managed all of that without knowing. And it's really not that different. The thing I needed my collaborator for, mainly, was to show me the limitations of the instruments. Because he writes for orchestra all the time, I would say, well, I want all the strings to do this, and he'd say, well, you just went off the top of the violin. You know, and I'd say, all right, we'll pull it back 2 notes, you know. But in fact, sometimes I would say to him, I want to go off the top of the violin. There's a violin solo in it that actually goes a note higher than the violinist has ever played before. So I like doing a bit of that, you know, I like to challenge him. And I said, can you do it, you know, can you do it? He said, yeah, so only dogs can hear this solo.
But it must have taken some guts and some self-confidence to do this. Is that the same bass that you used when you started in Liverpool? You
know, when they used to throw the tarot cards in the 60s with me, I always used to come up as the fool. And I'd go, oh, I hate that. They say, no, it's a good sign. It's fool is a good card. I don't really believe it, but, you know, I'd always say, well, oh, you know, fool, isn't it? So couldn't I be the king? I said, no, no, fool. And I think there probably is an aspect of that in my character. I always, if I love the sound of a job that I'm offered, I accept. You know, so the first day they asked me, I said, yeah. I don't go away for 2 weeks and brood and think, should I do this? I act on instinct a lot. I just think, I know I'll enjoy this. Yeah, I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to do it. And I love it so much, I'll be able to pull it off. Which is taking a big risk, you know, and you're right. I do have to be very confident in my own ability to do that. But I was about halfway through it. I was in a pub having a drink with some guy, and there was this Irish actor who was there. And I was explaining what I was doing. He said, isn't that intimidating? And it was the first moment I'd ever thought of it. I went, oh yeah, I suppose it is. But it hadn't occurred to me. So maybe there's something, you know, in my character that just allows me to bite off these things without thinking. Some people would say it's a bad thing, but I don't find it a bad thing. I find it means that I don't fret. I don't worry a lot.
You always seem to be a very happy person and very content with what you do. Is that what keeps you going as well? You seem to today as well to come here and play at a concert in Copenhagen. You said at the press conference that you didn't need the publicity and the money, and it seems you're just doing it for the fun, just for the fun of it.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is that. You know, I think in your life, it is a great motivating factor if you can do a thing for fun. You think about it, when we're kids, some of the greatest memories that we've got were just for fun. They turned out great. I mean, my daughter the other day, just for fun, oh, I don't know, this is a long story. Have you got time? Yeah. My daughter, she was going to go to the Silverstone, the car racing, right? So she's got a job. She doesn't get paid that much, you know. She wants to be independent, so she was doing it on her own money. I wasn't helping her. So she and a friend took the train, and they went there just for fun. And they met this guy. Well, the guy turned out to be the head of the Benetton team, and he got them great tickets, and he took them home in his helicopter. And it all happened just because they'd gone on instinct and fun. I think if they'd have planned it, I don't think they'd have met him. And I'm a great believer in that, you know, that it's a great motivating factor if you can actually do a thing just because you enjoy it. You often find that you also make a lot of money off it.
So how do you try to raise your own kids? How did you raise them? You're famous, you've got a lot of money and the fame. Was it difficult for you to teach them that you have to work hard to get things? Or?
Well, Linda and I took a couple of decisions when we first had the kids. And I said, I don't really want them going to what we call public schools, the paying schools in England, because I'm not a great believer in that. So they went to the ordinary state schools, and a lot of people said to me, hey, Paul, you could send your son to Eton. I said, yeah, but I don't want to. Much as I've got nothing against Eton, it's not right for me. Because he'd come home, hello, Father, how are you? Hello, Peter. Oh, yes, you know, and I'd be going, oh, my God, how do I fit in? So for selfish reasons and for, you know, these other reasons that I think, you know, Linda and I decided that we had to bring the kids up to having their feet on the ground. Because if they're going to inherit money, which they will, you've got to have your feet on the ground. Because we've seen too many people go crazy with it. You know, you see Christina Onassis or someone, she never came to terms with it. But I don't think she went to ordinary schools. I think you'll find she went to the finest Swiss finishing schools and everything. So we put our kids through all the ordinary schools. And it was good, actually, because my eldest daughter, when she was like 19, she went to a kind of a finishing school for some exams. It was like a cramming school, we call over there, you know, to get some intensive thing for the big exam. And when she went, there were a lot of rich kids there, a lot of kids who'd been to all the proper schools. And she was like their mother. She was the one with the feet on the ground, and they were all saying, oh, Mary, you know, you're great, you know. And she could see their problems, she could help them, and because she had her feet on the ground. And Linda and I have always said, you know, if there's one thing we can give the kids, we'd like them to have big hearts. That's what's important. And she's from a very academic family, Linda, but she was never academic. She's like the black sheep of her family. Her brother went to Stanford, her father got in Harvard when he was 16. All the girls went to Smith College. These are like the finest colleges in America. Linda didn't, you know, she barely scraped through. And I was the same. I was in the band, you know, instead of doing anything kind of like be a doctor or something, you know. Yeah. So we thought, well, if it's good enough for us, you know, maybe that's what we've got to do with the kids. So you know, I think people are agreed that they're nice kids, our kids.
Is it? Can I just just
One last question.
One last question.
Question as we.
It is the last question. Can I have two?
No.
One
No,
short?
no.
No. Okay. One last question. Well, the last question is: try to turn one of your songs around, and try to say, "Will you still need it? Will you still feed us when you're 64?"
And is this a question?
Sort
To
of.
me?
It's for you. Yeah.
Yes.
Will you still need it? Will you still feed us? When you're 64?
I don't know. You know, I mean, 64 for me seems a long way away. It is retirement age, or 1 year short of retirement age. So I don't know, you know. I don't plan my future. I really don't. I've got this far by not planning it. We never planned the Beatles. People would say with the Beatles, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? We'd ask it. Someone in the group would always say, well, something will happen. And that was the attitude we took all the time. We broke down on the motorway once. England, mid of winter, windscreen went out, no cars, it was 3 in the morning. Somebody said, well, what are we going to do? Oh, something will happen. And a lorry pulled up and gave us a lift. You know, so I'm a great believer in that. So I don't know if I'll need it or if it'll feed me when I'm 64. But I wouldn't mind betting I'm still doing something, you know.
I hope so. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Cheers. Thanks.
I got a little woman, mean as she can be. Sometimes I think she's almost as mean as me. Well, now that cat up died of fright because she crossed his path last night. Got a little woman, mean as she can be. Sometimes I think she's almost as mean as me. Yeah, but I can't be so. Come on, Robin. She makes love without a smile, a hot dog that drives me wild. Got a little woman, mean as she can be. Sometimes I think she's almost as mean as me. You know what she's giving me? She's giving mean, mean woman blues. Mean, mean woman blues. I got those mean, mean woman blues. Sometimes I think How you doing, all right?